Welding. Let's just get right into it. Welding is a process used to fuse materials together. Said materials range from metals used in aerospace all the way to wood. The materials that are bonded together are called parent materials, while the supposed glue in between the materials is called a filler. If you, for example, grab a chair, feel on the legs of the chair, you will find some bumps. The bumps are metal that has been melted and stuck together with other pieces of the chair to ensure that the chair sticks together and is strong enough to withstand someone's weight. Generally speaking, it's very easy to spot where something has been welded in that type of form. This, however, does not exactly go for the rest of the forms of welding. This is simply the most well known due to how easy it is to spot and feel. Welding is astoundingly simple, to the point where it's actually more difficult to say anything of substantial length without needing to teach an entire course on the topic. Of course, the history of welding could be talked about, but that's generally uninteresting nor helping what you do in today's age. This is due to the natural progression and improvement of welding. Techniques have improved, and old ways of welding have become generally obsolete in most areas and forms of welding metals. For example, MIG welding, metal inert gas. Imagine a long piece of metal and a blowtorch. MIG welding combines the two. A long metal rod would be directly in the middle of the nozzle of the blowtorch. The flames of the blowtorch would both melt the parent metal and the rod directly inside the blowtorch, thus making it so you're able to weld two items of metal together without holding the filler metal yourself on another hand. This would be more convenient when you need to weld while in awkward situations, for example, while underwater. Now let's take a look at another popular form of welding, TIG welding, or tungsten inert gas. There are constant arguments between which is better, TIG or MIG, but there's one vitally important thing to remember. They are virtually the exact same thing. They use the same kind of flame, there's no substantial difference between the two, and even that underwater point I made earlier would be achieved with the same efficiency by just bringing shorter metal rods. TIG welding is quite literally just taking the metal rod from inside the blowtorch, removing it from the nozzle, and holding it yourself to melt to the parent material. Whatever your preference is towards MIG or TIG welding, there's one thing that will always stand out. Everything is more simple when you actually do it. Of course, TIG welding, there is an art form to how you hold the filler material, and this is something you need to learn, and it is arguably more difficult to learn than MIG welding. Meet Rob. Rob, meet the camera. Rob is a welder from Bertels Welding, and is a proficient welder. I interviewed Rob over here through email. Rob is the only welder who responded to me from nearly a dozen different welders that I messaged. I will now do a word-for-word recreation of our emails and messages using nothing but a teddy bear. Sam. Hi, I'm a student from Johnson Heights High School. I'm looking to interview someone who does welding for a school project. If I could use some of your time for you to answer 10 questions of mine, that would be great. Thank you for your time. Rob says, Hi Sam, would love to help you out. Sorry for the late reply, I have been very busy. Thanks, Rob, Bertels Welding. I said, Hi Rob, don't worry about the late reply, we all get busy. Thank you for taking your time to respond anyways. I messaged several other people and you're the only one who has responded. I figure, given your busy schedule, several different emails would be a hassle, so I'll just list out the 10 questions so you can take your time to respond. Question number 1. What was something you didn't expect while going into welding? What are some of the upsides and downsides of working as a welder? What are the safety procedures of welding? Have you ever welded something in your spare time, and if so, what was it? How do you stay in shape for this job? What was the hardest thing you need to learn for this job? Have you ever considered switching careers, or are you content with your current job? What is a good way to weld metals? Have you ever welded a tank, and what are your tips from those wanting to get into welding? That is all the questions. If you could ask them quickly, that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks, Sam. Rob says, Hi Sam, I hope this helps. There are several different things I didn't expect while going into welding, like how I can tolerate a burn while welding and not move compared when I first started. How painful arc flash is, literally like having Mr. Sandman pouring sand in your eyes. One last one would be how often you go through boots. 2. There are plenty of upsides to welding, for example, good wages. Depending on certification, of course. Learning new things every day, being challenged day in, day out. I guess being challenged day in, day out could also be viewed as a downside if someone wants to do a simpler welding job. Everyone is different, but overall, when there's work, but when there's no work, there's no work. So that's something I have learned throughout my career. Safety procedure of welding would be wearing your correct PPE, personal protective equipment, steel toes, safety glasses, 100% cotton or leathers, a cap, gloves, and your helmet. Attach ground to workpiece and strike an arc. 4. You usually help other people in your spare time. If you have any spare time, you're usually not welding. 5. I would say welding keeps you in shape by itself. It definitely can be physically demanding day in, day out, especially the more certified you become. The hardest thing I had to learn was definitely TIG welding. With no pedal, there's definitely an art to it. 7. I have thought about it from time to time, but once I went from an employee to an entrepreneur slash contractor, it's like starting my career all over again. Exciting and challenging. 8. A welder doesn't solder, he welds. Soldering is like for computer chips and tiny stuff, computer components, etc. Question 9. I have welded on many tanks before, whether it's new fabrication or something leaking and it needs to be fixed. I have welded them and repaired them. 10. Tips for welding. Depends entirely on the individual, whether they want to push themselves to be the best or maybe they just want to be average. There's a welding job for everyone. My tip would be, if you put in the work, you will be rewarded. You have to go through all the steps to get that Red Seal certification, which can be very long and grueling, especially with the way the economy works. But, at the same time, it can be very rewarding. It's a skill you will always have once you learn it, and the trick is to capitalize, so my tip would be to learn business as well as welding, so you can weld something in your spare time. Take care, Rob. Rob was a very polite individual, to the point where I felt sort of bad for bothering him with this. Nonetheless, he helped me finish the interviewing portion on this project, which I am grateful for. Welding. Welding is simple. It can be difficult, but it's a skill that once you learn, you'll never really unlearn. Welding is dangerous. You can't avoid being hurt from it while working in the field, but in exchange, you get a valuable skill that can help with a number of issues. This is just about everything you would need to know to get a grasp on welding and decide whether or not you want to learn it as a skill or not. Good day.